It all started when I moved into a quiet, gated community just outside the city. I had been working long shifts as a state trooper and finally decided to buy a place where I could relax. The house was perfect, close to nature, far from noise, and seemed like a peaceful escape from my demanding job. Soon after settling in, I noticed a few people from the Homeowners Association, or HOA, constantly knocking at my door. They weren't there to welcome me. They wanted me to join their HOA, pay dues, and follow their rules, even though my home technically wasn't under the HOA's jurisdiction. I politely declined every time they came by. I wasn't trying to be difficult, but I did my research. My property was grandfathered in before the HOA formed. I wasn't legally bound to join, and honestly, I liked my independence. That didn't sit well with them, especially the president, Mr. Graham. Mr. Graham was the kind of guy who loved authority. He wore his HOA badge like it was a real one. He told me I was setting a bad example by not joining and said I was challenging the harmony of the neighborhood. I smiled, thanked him, and closed the door. That must have really irritated him. I didn't think too much of it. I had other things on my plate: night shifts, traffic stops, and paperwork. My motorcycle, the police-issued one, was parked on my driveway. It wasn't flashy. It was part of my job. I used it for patrols, and it was clearly marked as a law enforcement vehicle. Then, strange things started happening. Notes appeared on my windshield, unsigned but clearly threatening: "Join or pay the price." One read. I ignored it, thinking it was a joke. I mentioned it to a few neighbors, but they just shrugged and said, "That's Graham for you." A week later, I came home from a late shift and found my bike wasn't in its usual spot. I panicked, thinking it was stolen. Then I saw the smoke. My heart sank. I ran toward the source and found my police motorcycle engulfed in flames behind the community clubhouse. The fire department arrived quickly. So did local police. I kept my identity quiet at first, not wanting to make a scene. The firefighters confirmed it was arson. That wasn't just destruction of property, it was a federal crime, especially since it was government-issued. The officers began asking questions. I stayed back, blending in with the crowd that had gathered. Then, I stepped forward, pulled out my badge, and introduced myself as a state trooper. You should have seen the look on Mr. Graham's face when he realized who I was. Everything changed in that moment. The fake authority, the arrogancia, it all drained from his face. He tried to play innocent. "We didn't know it was a police bike," he stammered. But everyone knew that was a lie. The bike had decals, a light bar, and a license plate that read state. I asked to see the clubhouse's security footage. Graham hesitated, said the cameras were down for maintenance. That made things worse. The officers with me raised eyebrows. It was starting to look like a coordinated attack, one that involved multiple people. We got a search warrant for the footage. Turns out, the cameras weren't down at all. They captured everything. Graham and two others dragged my bike using a pickup, doused it with gasoline, and set it on fire, all while laughing like it was a prank. The case went from neighborhood drama to felony arson fast. The district attorney took one look at the footage and filed charges immediately. Graham was arrested within hours, and so were his buddies. The community was in shock. No one thought it would go this far. I got calls from neighbors who had avoided me before. They apologized. Some said they were afraid of speaking out against the HOA. Graham had been a bully for years, but no one wanted to challenge him. Now that he was behind bars, people finally felt free. The local news picked up the story. Headlines read, "HOA President Arrested for Arson Against State Trooper." My department backed me fully. They even offered me a replacement bike and commended me for staying calm throughout the situation. I filed a civil lawsuit against the HOA and the individuals involved. Turns out, even though I wasn't a member, the HOA funds were used for the gas and supplies to burn my bike. That opened up a whole other legal can of worms. In court, Graham tried to blame others, said he was misled, that it was a group decision. But the judge didn't buy it. The evidence was overwhelming. He got sentenced to 7 years. His accomplices got 5. The HOA dissolved not long after. The burned remains of my bike were displayed in court, not because it was necessary, but because I wanted them to see what they destroyed. It wasn't just metal. It was my partner on the road, my tool to keep people safe, and a symbol of my duty. The judge called it a disgraceful attack on law enforcement and community trust. I agreed, but I wasn't bitter. I was relieved. Finally, that chapter was closed, and the message was clear: abusing power, even in a neighborhood, comes with consequences. Since then, I've continued my service proudly. My new bike rides smoother. Neighbors wave when I drive by. Some even stop me to chat. It's a different atmosphere now, less fear, more unity. All it took was the truth coming out. Graham's house was sold off at auction. The HOA sign was taken down. People planted flowers where the bike was burned, as a symbol of new beginnings. It may sound corny, but it meant something to me. The community chose peace over fear. Every now and then, someone asks if I regret not joining the HOA. I laugh, not for a second. I say, rules are fine when they're fair, but forced control, that's never the answer. Freedom doesn't mean lawlessness, it means choice, and I chose to stand my ground. I've since spoken at events about HOA abuse and citizen rights. My story went viral online. People from across the country reached out, sharing their own HOA horror stories. It's more common than you'd think. But now, more people are standing up. There's something powerful about being underestimated. Graham saw me as just another homeowner. He didn't know who he was messing with. And honestly, that made revealing the truth all the more satisfying. Now, every time I ride through that neighborhood, I smile. Not because I wanna, but because justice did. And that's what being a trooper is all about. Serving, protecting, and sometimes burning down the lies instead of motorcycles.